Welcome back to Nutrition Farms, where we're continuing our series of how to do it slides. And this is a really interesting one because one of the sort of almost breakthroughs in regenerative agriculture is this fairly recent recognition of the importance of a very forgotten mineral, a mineral that's actually insanely abundant, a mineral of course called silica. You know, the core of the earth is silica. Clays are aluminosilicates, sands are silica. There should be no shortage of this mineral, and when we start testing for it, we're measuring something called monosilicic acid, and what we find is that we need 100 parts per million on a soil test, and almost always you've got 20 or 30, and interestingly you've got higher levels of plant available silica in an organic or a regenerative scenario than you do in a full-on chemical extractive model. So the suggestion is that something we're doing, and it could be any number of chemicals or approaches, is impacting the organisms that make silica available. So why is it important? Because we're recognizing now that if we're going to be proactive with pest and disease control to reduce our need for farm chemicals, the starting point is quite simply the cell wall. The fungal disease has to drill its hyphae through that cell wall to get to the cytoplasm, the yolk of the egg, the food source, so then the powdery mildew can begin spreading across the leaf once it's got a food source. And the sap-sucking insect has to drill its mandibles through that substantial cell wall to get to that same yolk. And the very simple proactive thing is, how do we create or strengthen the cell wall? How do we create a physical barrier to buckle that hyphae to even negatively impact the eating apparatus of those sap-sucking insects? And the discovery is there are two minerals involved, and they're equally important. And those two minerals are calcium and silica. Now, calcium's a whole story unto itself because it's really immobile. There are many minerals, including nitrogen, potassium, and magnesium, that compromise the uptake. Fungi are involved in calcium uptake, and fungi have been decimated in many soils. And so there's a whole story about calcium, but here we're focusing upon this mineral called silica that should be there at 100 parts per million and very often is not. And so we find that if we can strengthen that cell wall as a proactive approach, and that involves calcium and silica, equally important, then we see this resilience. And then of course there's an awakening as to the potential of this forgotten mineral. There have been multiple international silica conferences, and they get more profound in terms of the findings at each of these conferences. And one of the more recent ones, in fact the South African conference, there were 7 published papers that highlighted a completely not understood facet of this mineral called silica. And the finding was that silica is a really powerful immunoliciter. And why that's important to you is because there are no exceptions, 0 exceptions, anything at all that boosts plant immunity, all known immunolicitors, and there are microbes that can elicit an immune response, and there are various substances, including salicylic acid, that can boost immunity. But in every instance, anything that boosts immunity boosts yield. So this is a really good story. You've got the stronger cell wall, you've got this immunolicitation. That means less need for chemicals, less stress on the farm, and higher yields. So it's a wonderful win-win scenario. Very importantly, stem strength is very much silica-based. Lodging in a broadacre crop is very commonly, not always, because it can also be copper and potassium, but very commonly it's a silica deficiency. And it's amazing to spray just a couple of litres of potassium silicate on a crop that's falling over very easily when there's a bit of breeze, and of course that affects your harvesting potential. And you can watch it just spring back. I mean, it's a tremendous effect on stem strength when you apply some silica if you've got that issue. So stem strength, and then there's the whole concept of minerals driving photosynthesis, the most important process, and the translocation into and around the plant, which is driven by structures called phloem and xylem. Well, it turns out that phloem and xylem are made from silica. So we're understanding how hugely important this neglected mineral actually is. So phloem and xylem are silica-based, and obviously if you can transport more and more efficiently around the plant with both moisture and nutrients, that is of tremendous gain. So that's the other aspect of silica. Now what we're going to do here, and we'll talk about some other silica options, but we're talking about a hybrid approach. We're talking about something called a functional hybrid when we talk about nutrition farming. We can take anything from anywhere, and the only guideline is, does nature approve? So in this instance, we're actually going to look at biodynamics. We're going to look at Rudolf Steiner, strange guy, brilliant guy, who has come up with a whole thing, of course, called biodynamic agriculture. He also was very much involved in multiple other things, including education. My youngest son went to a Steiner school, and it was truly remarkable. So Rudold came up with a whole series of preps that borders on homeopathic. It's sort of an energy approach towards agriculture, where you've heard of 500, where you dilute, you basically take cow manure and plant it in a cow's horn underground for a certain period based upon planetary influences, and you dig it up at a precise time based on where the planets are at, and then you've got this compost, and then you put that into a vat at really small amounts, and there's microbes in there. You've created a little composted cow manure, but there's something else happening there, and of course you reverse stir it to create a vortex and pull in this concept of atmospheric energy to energize this substance, and then you put it at a small rate, a few tablespoons per hectare. But you can walk onto a biodynamic farm in the midst of a drought, and they've got lush grass and everyone else has got concrete. There's something happening there. Well, Steiner was way ahead of the game in terms of recognizing silica. He's got silica in multiple of his strategies. So we've got things like 501, which is one of the preps, which is based upon micronized or very fine silica quartz. So he's recognized that. He uses things like horsetail, the highest source of silica, in his composting preps, and a very important prep that we're going to talk about now, because it sort of differs from the other BD preps in the sense that it's not really homeopathic. You're actually putting out significant amounts of silica, and what horsetail is the highest silica source in a plant. It's a weed, of course, and we don't have this in Australia. So there's something called the she oak, the casuarina, that's a native tree all over Australia, and we've got some here. We've dried it for this purpose, and they actually call it the horsetail tree or the horsetail she oak because it has comparable levels of silica. And what we're going to do, and this is what we're about to demonstrate, is how you can make it's an extended version, an amplified version, again, functional hybrid. We're taking ideas from all over, and we're going to teach you how simple it is on farm to make your own silica, very, very powerful silica preference. And it's not just a silica spray. We're going to do this with this beneficial anaerobic microbes, a product called BAM. After we've gone through the extraction via tea, we're then going to brew it with an anaerobic brewing process and extract anything that's left and put the microbes behind the silica to amplify that silica response. And it's very simple. Anyone can do it on farm, and we're going to demonstrate how to do it. Now you'll see the equipment involved here. We're talking about a gas bottle and a burner, and we need to boil the water, and we've got a fairly large tank, a pot here that's probably 30 or 40 litres. We've boiled the water, it's already boiling, you can see the smoke coming off it, and we've dried our she oak, our casuarina, and basically we're just going to add the casuarina into this scenario, and we'll get as much as we can get in there, and we're going to boil it for 60 minutes basically. And it's like making a tea. You make a tea, it's only a 10-minute process. This is a bit more extraction involved in boiling for an hour. So 60 minutes of boiling with I'll just grab a stick appropriately, because we're in Australia. We'll grab a little children's cricket bat, and we'll use that just to poke down our casuarina into our brew. We'll add a bit more. We can probably use all of this. There's a recipe on my podcast and online quite specific to a 200 litre or 1,000 litre brew. This is intended for a 200 litre brew, but initially we're going to do the tea extraction. Just poke this down. That's about as much as we can get in there, so that's perfect. Make sure that it's all covered, and then it will happily boil away for the next 60 minutes, at which point we're going to take the entire contents of this boiling drum, perhaps we'll cool it a little first, and we're going to set this up as a 200 litre brew, and we're going to teach you how to do that. And it's very simple. We've got a one-way valve with a piece of garden hose and a bottle of water, and the garden hose goes into the empty space in the top, and it feeds into the bottle of water strapped onto the side. And so the CO2 that's produced during the fermentation process, the organisms are breathing out CO2 constantly, has got an escape. It becomes toxic if there's no escape valve, and oxygen can't get in. We don't want oxygen for these anaerobic organisms. So when this tea's brewed, we're going to have a silica soup literally, and we're going to pour the entire thing, and we're going to complete the extraction over the next couple of weeks with the BAM and molasses and so forth, and we'll teach you how to do that shortly. Welcome back. So we're returning to our farm production of something called BD508, which of course is the silica-based formula where we've utilised, in the absence of the weed called horsetail, the very high silica containing weed horsetail, we're using the native Casuarina, often called the horsetail she oak, because of its high silica content and its similarity to silica in terms of that long needle that's packed with silica. So as you recall, we set up our tea. We've poured out some of the tea to make it a little lighter, and Karl will take some of the tea. It's a lovely black mixture and it smells delicious. It smells almost drinkable, but I'm not sure that you could. But Karl's going to pour this into our 200 litre drum. Whoop. Okay. And then we're going to tip the whole balance, all of the remaining Casuarina, because we're going to extract using beneficial anaerobes anything that remains, including the cofactors for the performance of silica. We're going to now utilise, pour straight into this 200 litre drum, the whole soup. That's the one. So we put it all into the 200 litre drum, and we're just filling that with water, so it's not too hot for the inclusion of our microbes. And our next step is to turn this 200 litre drum into an anaerobic brewing tank. And so you need a drum for a start that has a screw-on lid. We've got a lid for this one just down here. And what we'll do is drill a hole, very similar to what we did with the 1,000 litre shuttle, to create a one-way valve. We're going to have one end of the hose through that hole and the other end into the bottle of water strapped onto the side, so that the CO2 can get out and bubble in the water, but oxygen can't get into this closed system. So we'll do that in a moment. We'll wait till we've got a little more water in here. We'll start adding the additions now. So one of the additions is molasses. It's very similar to just the simple process of brewing BAM, but we're using slightly less mother culture and molasses. We're using 10 litres of molasses. So we'll pour the 10 litres of molasses into here now. And next we'll be adding the BAM mother culture into that mix. So we're getting close to the top with our water as well now. We'll add the BAM mother culture into here now. Now we're going to add our 10 litres. So we've got our BAM here, 10 litres of BAM mother culture. Beautiful. And I mentioned earlier this concept of adding some kelp, fish and fulvic acid as a more comprehensive food source to further develop the biodiversity of the inoculum. So we're adding our 2 litres or 1.5 litres of sea change KFF, the kelp, fish, fulvic acid, sort of complete food that will sort of finish the job. So we've got this very close, so we're this far from the top, and that's about where we want it, because we've got to insert our one-way valve. We're going to screw the lid on. Tight and seal it. And we're going to drill our hole on the top. Going to go in? Yep. So we've got a nice tight fit, which is what you want. Now, as I mentioned, we might seal this with a little bit of silica just to make sure that it's completely waterproof. And the other end of this hose is going to be into the bottle, as I mentioned. The bottle will bubble as this whole process, and in this case we might leave it as long as a month, but certainly 3 or 4 weeks. And the BAM organisms will decompose and further extract any remaining silica and other goodies from this process. And what you're doing effectively with your end product, you don't need to do this, you can just do the 508 without the second step, but the second step literally puts the microbes behind the minerals. So you've got microbes in there that will basically enhance the uptake of the silica and other goodies within that mix. So you're sort of getting a double benefit. You're getting the benefit of an inoculum and that all-important silica when you do this simple thing. And now we've got a tank that we'll use indefinitely for that purpose. So yeah, that's how you do it. That's how you make your biologically activated BD508. Thanks for listening.